Hey guys, IODE here. Today I'm going to be talking to you about workflow in Ableton and how to get your songwriting process started a little bit easier. Let's get started. Okay, so you see I have a blank project open here, and this is my default template, minus any, I don't think there's any effects on this one. And so you'll see that I have different groupings here, and they're all color coded. So I have a grouping for my reference, I have a grouping for my drums, I have a grouping for my fills, leads, bass, effects, vocals, and so on. And each of these are color coded, and they each have a MIDI track or two on them, or an audio track. Just again makes that getting started process a little bit easier. And how you create one of these groupings is you'll insert a audio or MIDI track. So let's just create an audio track in your timeline view, and then you're going to go right click on that track, group tracks. Boom, you have a grouping. Now let's rename that. We'll name it audio group 1. Boom. Now let's give it a color. Let's do it like a pink. And now we have that color-coded audio grouping, but it's the audio track that's in there is not color-coded the same way. So what we got to do is right-click again and assign track color to group tracks and clips. So boom, now that we've done that, we have our audio grouping with an audio track, and then if we save the template, then that'll automatically pop up every single time. There's all sorts of settings you can do, and that'll all save in your default template. You can drag audio effects. For example, if we wanted to do an audio, if we want to do a reverb on this track or even the whole group, we drag a reverb on, change the settings to our liking, boom, save template, and that'll all be in there when you launch your project right from the start. Let's delete that. Let's delete that. And I'll show you where this gets useful. So for example, like vocals, I have this little clip that I recorded. Hey, this is just a clip of me talking for an example. Cool. We have that. There's no effects on there or anything. But let's throw on a couple of stuff that I know will help me in pretty much any project. I can drag my EQ8 on there, and let's take out anything below like 200 hertz. Boom. Okay, cool. So we have that there. We could even adjust it maybe a little bit more if we wanted to. If we found some like settings that often work, and you have a consistent recording setup every single time, and the same effects are going to work. Something I also like to use is the gate. Let's say again you have a consistent recording setup, and the same settings will pretty much work for you every time. So what we can do is, hey, this is just a clip of me talking for an example. And there we go. And now we have just a couple, effects that, will help us in any project up front, and we don't really have to mess around with those. So vocals. Hey, this is just a clip of me talking. We're gonna adjust it a little bit more, but I mean, you get the point. And like I can save this now. Preferences, file, folder, and then save current set as default. Save, overwrite the default set. Boom. Now those effects will open every single time when we open our project. And you can do all sorts of stuff. You can change the default BPM. It pretty much, it's like it freezes the project when you save it, and it loads it up the exact same way when you save it as your default template, which is really nice. So you can see I also have like a little marker right here that says intro, and like again mapping out song structure. Maybe you have a general idea of that kind of stuff. And you can also save those markers into your default template project. The next thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is having a reference track. And that ties into some of the stuff I was talking about earlier, like song structure. So right now I don't have a reference track in here, but let's say I want to do a bass house track. Actually, I have a folder on my computer just with like a bunch of different tracks and different genres that, you know, I think might help me. So let's just drag in any, like, I don't know, bass house, G house track. We'll drag in this one, this Phlegmatic Dogs track. Good rule of thumb is, like, you know, like every 4, 8, 16 bars, like something happens in a song, and those are usually when you want to make markers. So and you can, you know, visually see a lot of that stuff in the waveforms. So if we kind of listen. There's this 8-bar section. It starts on beat. After 8 bars, some new sounds come in. And then after 16 bars, it continues to pick up.
Uno, dos, tres.
Fuck you.
Drops at 32 bars, and that build up is 8 bars before the drop. And you can just, again, you can go in your marker, and let's go right here. So yes, I don't even know, like new sound or energy pickup, something like that. And you can actually go right click and edit text info, and you can make it, you can write like detailed notes. So it could be like make notes of like the sounds that come in. There's like a symbol that comes in there. Symbol enters, vocal chops start, and boom, again, using the reference track like that for your song structure. And then again, I can go over here and make a marker and like drop 1. Do the same for the build up. Build up 1. And that'll just help you again with your songwriting process, having that reference track at the very least for the song structure. And then what you can do is, as you progress in your song, you can use this reference track also as a reference for mixing and mastering. So, you know, how do the drums sound? How does the bass sound? How does every individual part of that song sound in comparison to yours? It doesn't have to be exactly the same, and obviously you want to have your own sound. I also want to talk a little bit about plugins, specifically the stock plugins, kind of how to utilize them best and learn how to utilize them. So I would honestly say watch some videos on YouTube or something and just kind of see what plugins, you know, other artists that you're trying to mimic use the most. Try to like learn in terms of like stock plugins, and then try to just kind of watch or read some like tutorials on how to use them. For example, like the EQ8, compressor, auto filter, reverb, those are all good to get to know pretty well. I like to use the drum bus. I use a lot of stock plugins, and I think those are always good. But and then like limiter, just kind of like reading up a little bit about how each of those work. That'll help you out a lot. And I'll also add that I notice a lot of producers, they'll have like project files with like over 100 tracks, and they'll have like tons and tons of plugins on a single track, and then they'll resample that, and then they'll add tons and tons of like plugins and effects to that. And what I will say about that is they do that because that's what sounds best to them, and that's the way they like their workflow. You don't necessarily have to do that, and this advice is more geared towards beginners. When you see that, it's really easy to get overwhelmed, and you don't necessarily need to do that. That's what they want to do because that's their workflow and that's how they like to produce music. But you don't need to have tons of effects and plugins on a clip in order for it to sound good. You can even use a couple and it can still be a finished sound. It's just what sounds good to not only your ears, but also whoever's mixing and mastering your project, or if you're the one who's mixing and mastering your project. I definitely say in terms of learning plugins and specifically a stock plugin, the compressor is really good to know, understand how a compressor works. That is that will help you out a lot in understanding how to use compression. Something else I want to get at too is the use of return tracks, return bus tracks. These are really nice because you can route a bunch of audio into your return bus tracks and they won't affect the original sound. So it's really good for a reverb. If you add a reverb to a track file, it will change the original sound. So if I add like a bunch of reverb, 97, you hear how it like completely distorts the original sound. Well, we don't want that, so let's cut this actually exact one. Paste it. This little slider right here controls your first return bus track. So that reverb is there now, but it's not interfering with the original sound. It's layering the sound. You can hear what it sounds like together, and then what that reverb track sounds like just on its own. So you can hear the difference, and it just kind of depends. There are some times where I want to modify the original sound, and there are other times where I don't want that original sound modified, and I just want them layered. Another good workflow tip is having a library of sounds that you like to frequently use. These can be sounds that you've designed yourself. They can be your own sound design, or they can just be cherry-picked samples from sample packs that you personally like to use. And then you can create collections up here. So you have like favorites. I have like a little one for house. And so I can drag different samples and stuff in here, and ones that maybe I like to frequently use. They can be like drum samples, one shots. I mean, they could literally be anything, and that way they're just easy to kind of access when you are working on a song. So I'm like, oh, I'm making a dubstep song. Okay, cool. So I want to pull some samples that I know that I like to use in dubstep, or they're from like a dubstep sample pack. So I'll have those in my favorites, and then I'll kind of just like, okay, cool, they're just right there. And then I also have like drum racks that are like saved for like different kinds of songs that I know that I'm gonna want to use, like subgenres. I mean, so I have like one like bass house, and then I can kind of replace some of those as I see fit, some of the sounds in that drum rack. That's a good tip too, is definitely having like libraries with your own sounds and having them organized a little bit. I think that's pretty helpful as well. One of the last things I want to say, and that I kind of iterated on earlier, is that you don't need to have 7 million effects and 200 tracks in a project in order to have a good sounding song. You can have a simpler project with not so many effects and not so many tracks and still have a song that sounds good. It's just all depends on what you're trying to do and ultimately if it sounds good. And that's what matters in the end, right? Does your song sound good? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys found this helpful. If you did, let us know in the comments. Also, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all the things. We greatly appreciate it. We have tons of cool stuff coming for you guys soon. We'll have a giveaway that we're going to announce in the next couple days. We're really excited for that, so keep an eye on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We'll be announcing all that on there. I hope you guys have a good day. See you later.